Earlier today, we had a book discussion. We have this at book discussions studies every day. We call them one at noon. Every weekday is called Footsteps. Because it's kind of like that, walking along very slowly. And today was, the book was Dogen's Shobogenzo, which we just started. And there were some questions out of that, and I thought that might be a good topic. So perhaps you could read, when you know if you want to read just a little bit leading up to where the question was.
When you're bowing. Grass, trees, and walls bring forth the teaching to all beings, including common people and sages. All beings in response extend this Dharma to grass, trees, and walls. Thus, the realm of self-awakening and awakening others invariably holds the mark of realization with nothing lacking, and realization itself is manifested without ceasing for a moment. When you're bowing.
So Dogen was a 13th century Buddhist master who was the founder of this particular lineage in which I am ordained and several other people here are ordained. Coming out of ancient China to Japan. He was a great teacher. And his book, Treasury of the True Dharma Eye, or Shobogenzo, is the one that we're studying on Wednesdays at noon. Is that the only time we're studying it? So, amazing thing about Dogen is he was able to talk in a very relative way, cause and effect, plus and minus, in an absolute way, transcending relative truth. You could do that at the same time. And the reason he could do that is he was an awakened master. So how many people were here studying today? So 4 of the people were here. So why don't we go back to that? Why don't we go back to just some questions from you on that rather than for me to give a talk on this particular subject. It's very straightforward, but it's not that easy to grasp. Go ahead.
What is the mark of realization?
So, and that was the basic question that I think Nato, you asking that, or was it someone else?
I think we were all discussing
that. So the mark of realization, simply put, we have to put it in a relative way. We can't speak in an absolute way. So there wouldn't be any, there's no words to speak in that way. So we're always using relative truth or speaking, no speaking, or concepts and so on to point to the ultimate nature of this world, this being a living being and living in this apparent three-dimensional world with all of our hopes, fears, happiness, difficulty, and so on. So a mark is like, there's a mark of communication. Nice tune. There's more people in here, I dance. Not likely. Not today anyway, maybe later. So the mark of realization, it's a mark, or it's a sign, or it's an indication, or it's something that shows up that signifies that there's the realization that a deep understanding of the nature of reality is happening or has occurred or is the case, which means if there's a deep understanding of reality, a deep understanding, then there's no further questions. And one who has that or understands that has no problems, has no issues, is not confused. And that sign or mark can be put in can be put in a lot of ways, but the way I put that is not separate. As long as you think there's some kind of a fundamental separation between things, then there'll be some kind of warfare. Maybe a low-level skirmishes, but some kind of, I don't like that, I like this, but I don't like that. A constant chattering in our mind about things we don't want to happen, things we do want to happen, and actual propaganda from what? Ego. The propaganda of ego is, I like it, I don't like it, I should like it, I shouldn't like it, it's their fault, it's my fault. Blame, credit and blame, credit and blame, credit and blame. So Dogen here is using very simple things we see today that he saw in the 13th century. Japan is flowers, trees, mountains, rivers are all preaching the Dharma, are all saying to you, they're saying to you, not separate. If you have eyes to hear, if you have ears to see, apparently that makes perfect sense. Then you'll know it. You'll know it. Where will you know it? You'll know it really deep inside. And you won't need to come and check with me or anybody. You won't need to check with the Buddhas. You won't need to check with anyone, because you will fundamentally see it yourself. And it will be certain. More?
You said someone who awakens has no problems or no issues?
I did.
Something like that.
Did I say that? Yeah. Okay, I said that. Okay, what's the question?
So what are issues when someone is confused?
You think they're real. You think you have to do something about them. You think that somebody's to blame for why that's happening. You think that there's an actual cause for each effect that is separate, rather than seeing that everything is dependently arisen. So you still experience the separation. You still experience the difficulty. You might still experience the abrasiveness of any given situation and have some dissatisfaction with it. But it doesn't happen to a solid, separate being. So therefore, it doesn't amount to a lot. You feel it, you hear it, you experience it, but you don't make, as they say, a federal case out of it. It barely gets to the surface. You see the difficulty, and it's just gone. You don't have to release it. You don't have to let go. You don't have to do anything with it. More?
In your meditation instruction, you talked about prioritizing awareness over the thinking process. How do you do that?
Just keep strengthening the awareness by sitting down and taking away the barbells from the thought process. Because we're like I like to say, our thinking process is muscle bound. We have thought and figured and thought and calculated and analyzed until we're just pretty good at it. And where has it led us? Round and around and around and around. There's no direct situation occurring. There's a circularity of it's. I like it. I don't like it. I like it. I don't like it. More.
How does the thinking process create further confusion?
So thinking process is generating thoughts and concepts and ideas that have a relative truth to them. It's relatively true. So it means that if it's night, then it's night. If it's day, it's day. There's a relative truth happening. So therefore we get sucked in and we think that everything works that way, that we can just somehow use that way to manipulate our lives to get what we want. But we haven't looked deep enough. We haven't looked deeply to see that who and what we actually are is not separate from anything. We just think it is. So therefore, we operate on that premise that we can somehow, that we as an individual can somehow get out of difficulty and have a really great, wonderful life from now on, just by manipulating things. More? Question? You. Mado.
Of course, I have questions.
Go ahead. Simple, short questions.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Do my best. If realization is a deeply personal awakening, that you said you know it in your heart and you're certain when you are realized, what's the role of a teacher and the whole idea of transmission? How does that connect?
Wait. Give me one question. I'm not going to do more than one at a time. Give me one question. I'd be happy to respond to it. And then I'll respond to the others in order.
What's the role of a teacher in the path of realization?
To point you in a direction where there's a possibility that you may realize, and to interrupt your circularity with with the student's permission. The student has to give the teacher permission. That's why in our situation, there's no propaganda. Near as I can tell, there's no promises of anything. I don't say, oh, come and meditate. It'll be so great. You guys will all be happy for the rest of your life. You'll attain enlightenment and it'll just be really cool. We'll all belong to the same Buddha club. It's a cheap shot. It's just cheap. It's disrespectful to people's lives, their karma, their thoughts, their emotions. It's cheap. So what you do is you know, in this situation, if you had a teacher, which I've had a couple, then you might find yourself in this situation where you make yourself available to help people. If they come to you, you help them. If they don't, then there's not much you can do. It's very mutual. Things are so not separate that you can't just go out and proclaim something. It has to be with someone else. You can't be a teacher unless you have a student. And if you try to create or manipulate people to be students, then this is a lower level of teaching called the mundane path. Not wrong. The mundane path or the ordinary path of learning how to become an architect, a chemist, a psychologist, all of the relative truth things, it's just fine. You can do that. If you're working with relative stuff, then that works. But when it comes to a spiritual path or transcendence, it doesn't work there. And when we try to do it using that same protocol, it's called spiritual materialism, which my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, wrote a book by the title of Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. In other words, seeing that spirituality is actually transcending that plus and minus mentality. So the role of the teacher, insofar as he or she has permission, is to, when the student comes, the teacher looks at the student, and then the student lets the teacher know exactly what they're willing to learn and what they're not willing to learn. And quite often the teaching situation is a matter of waiting the student out until they actually ask.
Is a teacher necessary?
For what?
For realization, since everything is always expounding the Dharma.
How's it working for you? How's it working for you? Yeah.
I'm not realized,
Oh,
but it's working.
what's working?
The path.
All right. Would it work without a teacher?
I don't know. I've never not had a teacher. But I'm thinking
Think
about it.
twice. Think twice if you say you've never not had a teacher. Think twice. In fact, think 4 times. Think twice and then think 2 more times after that. So what I'm saying is the teaching person needs to, everybody's already awake, everyone is already the Buddha, everyone is already, but what we do is we confuse it we lay things over the top of our own spiritual nature. We're all bodhisattvas. We're all enlightened beings. I have no doubt. I have no doubt about it. I can see it in everybody. I can see it everywhere. But I also see people who are like ostriches. Is the ostrich the one that sticks its head up its butt? Oh no, that's right. That's the camel that does that.
In sand.
Huh?
In sand.
That was close. So the teaching person, with permission, comes along and helps the student remove their head from their butt. Probably shouldn't be. I keep forgetting it. Broadcast. Ruby's not here, is she? Good. You gotta remember when there's 8-year-olds. So, but the idea there is to address your question more seriously. It's that you, in order to awaken, you may or may not. I think there is possibility of someone awakening without a teacher. That is possible. It's rare. It would not have happened here without having a teacher.
And in our lineage, the recognition of your awakening has to be authorized by a teacher. So that transmission,
Yes.
what does that mean? What does it mean to be transmitted?
It means someone acknowledges that you no longer have your head up your butt.
Mm-hmm. But if you're certain, do you need someone else to acknowledge it?
I don't know. What do you think?
No. If you're certain, what's the role of the person who is saying, yeah, I see you're certain?
Okay, then what you said.
Okay. Thank you.
Question?
What is the difficulty that one continues to experience when there isn't anything for it to stick to?
What was the last part of it?
When there isn't a solid self, when that's been realized.
Okay, so you realize that there's no solid self, and then you're asking what is the continuous difficulty? It's just having 6 sense fields. It's having the consciousness just appear in these 6 sense fields, continuing to live as a apparently separated being. We are separate. We are separated as organisms, or that's obvious there. But the fundamental situation is not separate, and that non-separation goes on and on, even though apparent separation goes on and on. It's not two. So if you say it's not two, then you can't have complete no separation. You can't have complete separation, because that would be back to two again. So the very not two-ness of it can be a really powerful problem or conundrum for a perception arising as anything, as a human being, and trying to understand what this is. We keep thinking in twos, binary, don't we? You notice that? But if you see trees, rivers, mountains, you see that their true nature is not separate. You're not separate from them. They're not separate from you. Not separate. And you actually see it, you hear it. You actually see it and hear it. It doesn't have to go through some kind of binary system of thinking, yes, I see that, now that's true, now I have proof. You actually see it. That's why there's teachings like the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi, which teaches using the kind of, that it's like looking in a mirror. Sheldon.
Are you saying that life is suffering even if you do realize?
Of course. You didn't lie. Life is suffering. You're still alive. Suffering. Some people teach this differently, but the way I would say it is that what is different is there's no solid self that's suffering anymore. So therefore, you're not trying to get out of it, because part of suffering is trying to escape from suffering, trying to stop it, trying to get away from it, trying to make it go away. I don't want this. That just adds to it. Whereas someone who there's a realization that there's no solid being anymore, then suffering may come. It may not feel very good, but you don't do much about it. You certainly don't blame anybody, including yourself. Don't blame anything. You may recognize everything's dependently arisen, and there's probably 1,532 causes why that suffering is arising right now, but you're not really too concerned with that. And it doesn't mean you won't say, ow, this hurts. I need some, well, I hope you don't go any further than Excedrin. More? Michael?
Are there no longer causes of suffering? No objects?
I think there's still, we still have a very relative, ordinary world happening. It isn't like we're walking around on clouds and everything is plated with gold. So there's still cause and effect. It's still occurring. It's just that we see deeply into it and see that that the effect is not separate from its cause or its causes. Stephanie.
So a realized being, are they always experiencing direct perception through the senses?
No. Most of the time. Anytime you say always, it's not going to work. Nothing is always. Only eternity is always. And that sounds fishy, doesn't it?
What is it about always that makes it so fishy?
I don't know.
Is it implies permanence?
I'll go with that. Sounds good.
From Laura Ernst in
Laura.
St. Louis.
Yes, Laura.
She asks, when one sits and thoughts keep coming and coming, sometimes it feels like the thought process is being strengthened and not the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
No. That's not happening. And that's a trick of our self-centeredness. Self-centeredness or ego doesn't really want to be looked at. So therefore, self-centeredness or ego will come up with ideas about why this isn't working. Well, this doesn't work. I'm just strengthening my thought process. No. What you're doing is you're seeing how much thinking you actually do. Constant chatter. And the consciousness is just constantly throwing up thoughts about everything. You can't have something happen. I'll give you an example. Everybody listen. Are you all listening? Now I'm gonna cause something to occur, and I want you to look at the very first thing that rises in your mind and tell me if it's just space. If it's just space, then I'm wrong about you. But if it's anything other than space, then I'm showing you that everything that happens, you add something to it. You interpret. This is what keeps happening. Anytime something happens, we, instead of letting it just be what it is, we think up shit about it. Here it is. Ready? What happened in your mind? What happened in your mind?
It just stayed blank.
Huh?
Stayed blank.
Well, you mean it was blank before then?
Oh, yeah.
How about you?
Ow.
Oh, anybody else?
I thought you were gonna bark.
You thought I was going to bark? I bark sometimes when I'm at a loss for words. I just become a canine. Anyone else have something they want to share? Just what occurred?
I was startled.
Okay, a little bit.
I wondered if that was it. Like, I thought maybe you were going to hit that down and then say something.
Or bark.
Something.
Well, it's kind of a weak example, but I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever happens, we add things onto it. There's nothing wrong with being surprised by something and then thinking something up. I'm not saying that, but bring a lot of awareness to that and see how we're always taking exception to everything. Anything that occurs, we either like it or we don't like it or we shut down on it. Those are the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Those are the three ways we avoid reality and create what? More suffering for ourselves. Around and around and around, chasing our tails, trying to get better, trying not to get worse. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. Carol?
Well, I
You do
do
have.
have a question.
Good.
Today in book study, you said that the mark of realization, I think you said it was passionlessness.
I said it at first, yes.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I can. It's a little bit more difficult. Not separate works a little better, but there's lots of ways of saying this. And what I would say is passionlessness means that you are, even though you're very present and you're right here and you have really strong intimacy with everything that is going on, it's passionless in that you're not grasping at anything. You're not rejecting anything. You're not shutting down on anything. So it's passionless in that sense. It doesn't mean that you don't have feelings, that you've turned into some kind of a block of wood. It just means that you're not buying into anything that arises. Whatever arises, it's just that. Yes.
What is the strong intimacy with things?
Not separate. It's just, I don't know how else to say it other than you feel very intimate with everything. You no longer are blaming anybody for anything they do. Somebody wants to cut you off in traffic, that's different. No, but I'm saying that you're what I'm trying to clarify is that even though you may have a reactionary, feelings about something, you don't buy that. You don't really believe that. You see the emotion happen, but it's like watching a movie. It's like the example I'm always giving is like some people can't even watch horror movies because even though they know it's a movie, it's just too intense. So that horror movie you're very intimate with those images. You're right there with them, so we tend to believe them.
If there's a sense of protecting around what's arising, are you believing?
You may be, but I didn't say you have to disbelieve. I mean, it's a way of teaching. I say don't believe your thoughts. So I say that, but also I know you can't help but believe your thoughts. But if I say don't believe your thoughts, what do? You immediately go and notice the way you believe your thoughts. So what is that? Awareness. Awareness trumps everything. Awareness trumps everything because you actually don't even have to have a body for awareness. You don't have to have a mind. You don't have to have anything for awareness. Awareness doesn't belong to anyone. Sheldon.
When you hit your stick on the table
Yes.
and we're supposed to come up with the first thing that comes up.
Okay.
How can you even do that? I mean, it seems like immediately we just start making up a story about it.
So we do, but it's not about stopping that. It's only about seeing that we do it.
So what is the first thing that comes up, a different thing than the story that we make about the stick hitting the table?
It could be. Could be. I think it varies. It's the idea is to bring so much awareness. This is why we do sitting meditation. We sit down and watch how we keep believing things. This is why we strengthen the awareness, so there's less and less tendency to push on things, on some things, pull on other things, and shut down on other things. There's more and more of a tendency to just be here and be present, giving things more and more the benefit of the doubt for what they are, instead of immediately jumping on our paranoia or jumping on our fear or jumping on the propaganda of our self-centeredness. That we're always being lectured to by our thought patterns. Have you noticed that? somewhat. I mean, I'm not saying, not accusing you of anything. Maybe you're one of those wonderful people who doesn't have that issue. Stephanie.
How do we practice and study and not believe any of it? And not believe it?
Really, like I said, you can't help but believe it. But the practice part or the path part is to see the degree to which you keep believing things and rejecting some things, grasping it. It's always about getting the awareness as strong as possible so you can see the way we keep going to war with ourselves, going to war with others, believing our thoughts. And sometimes when thoughts arise, the way it begins to look, if you do it enough and you practice it enough and you actually click into what is being said here, you will continue to have feelings. This is an example I've given sometime. See if this will be helpful. So can you see my hands? Okay. Okay, there's aggression or intense conflict coming up about something, and we're fighting it. We fight with it. We fight with what arises. We don't like it. I don't like that. I don't like that. And it could be happening with thoughts. I don't like that. I've got to stop feeling this way. I don't know what's happening to me. I have so many negativities. You could go on and on and on. What happens is the awareness practice, this is just an image. It might not look like this at all. But through the awareness practice, one of those fists starts to drop away. And the other one keeps going. And it still feels like there's warfare. Still feels like there's warfare, but it's like the momentum of our, the second noble truth of our discontent, wanting things to be different than they are. We don't even like this part if you know it's not hitting anything. But if you just keep bringing awareness to that, then eventually that one starts to slow down too. First, we have the opposition happening. Opposition. So it's not about stopping it. I like to say, don't go to war with war. If you sense war in yourself or in anyone else or any other situation, don't fight. If you do anything, negotiation might be the best approach. You can even do that with yourself. I will negotiate. I will sit down on a cushion and look at the wall and see if I can't understand what this war is about rather than continue to fight with it. Either fight with it through arguing with ourselves or whatever. Seems to be necessary to bring enough in there. Then if there's a possibility that warfare will back off, then it's not getting fuel. You have to, in order for this to get fuel, it almost has to be objected to. You go to war with something, it usually will fight back. Just a way of talking about it, of course. Good question. Good question.
I do.
Go ahead.
I think, Unya, when you read that sentence from Dogen, that it says that realization is available to the common man as well as to the sage. Is that? I guess my question is, is there a particular state of mind that one has to have in order to awaken?
Yes. Sounds like I answered that.
And what is that state of mind?
Not taking a position on anything. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I did.
Paraphrase me.
Not taking a position on anything.
I'll paraphrase that. Say that in some other words so I know you understood what I said.
Allowing everything to be just what it is.
Okay, now paraphrase it again.
No adding, no subtracting, no ignoring.
Really? Think that'll work?
Do I think that will work?
Yeah.
Hard to say. I haven't been able to make it work. So.
Okay. Further question?
Yeah, making it a little more particular. If someone is if someone's mind is clouded by substances, by drugs, by alcohol, by some kind of pathology, is such a person at a disadvantage to realization? Is like when Dogen says the implication is that the common man and the sage, the whole range of people, you don't have to have any particular credentials in order to be realized.
Well, if the common man awakens, then he or she is a sage. And if the sage doesn't awaken, then he's ordinary. And then if you see it in its entirety, you realize that the sage and the common man are not separate, because nothing is separate. Nothing is separate. Delusion and realization are not separate. That's why it's such a difficult. You're beginning to think. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I can see your wheels turning.
See the smoke coming out of my ears.
No, I don't see smoke. I think those are mice running out there. You have to really listen. Have to really listen to what's being said. Because that's actually key. What I'm giving to you and to everyone here is that's key. Delusion, confusion, suffering, and realization are not separate. If you think they're separate, then you will try to push down the suffering and get to the awakening. It won't work. It just creates more warfare. You're actually going to, just like it says, I'm not sure if it says it in this part of the Dogen's text, but doesn't he say something about goes beyond enlightenment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean? It goes beyond the concept of enlightenment. The concept of enlightenment is very appealing. We'd all like to be awakened and at peace and have no more warfare. But to actually go beyond that, you wouldn't shut down on anything. So therefore, how would you do that? How would you know? How could you possibly know? How can you know? Because there's no validation for you. Even Dharma transmission from some teacher telling you that, yeah, you got it. Doesn't make any difference. If you see it, then nothing is separate any longer. So therefore, you don't have any credential. It's like when the Buddha was confronted by the daughters of Mara in the legend, where on the morning of his awakening, they came and tried to scare him out of his realization by saying, "You don't know. You haven't realized anything. What makes you think you've realized something?" And the Sparsha Mudra, he reaches down, as you see in some pictures of the Buddha, and touches the dirt. This earth is my witness. He's just saying, I'm my own credential. And if you know that, then you may not get famous. No one may ever know, but you know.
I'm asking about the conditions, if there are any conditions for realization. For example, I'm wondering if Buddha
I just answered you.
There aren't any conditions.
No.
So
Unless there are, in which case, then there's conditions. What did I just say to you? Not two. You can't find a reference point. There are both no conditions and conditions. Both of them apply because it's relative. It's a relative world. That's why they call relative truth the concealer truth. This is a sound. What you're hearing now is the absence of that sound. So plus and minus, not separate. You can't have one without the other. The very statement you made, you can't have one without the other. You can't have realization without delusion. Please continue.
Excuse me?
Please continue.
Can you realize that in a state of delusion?
Sure. That's how we all realize things. You have to realize it in a state of delusion. what happens is there's just no more war. You don't even have to surrender. You just stop fighting. Surrendering is more of a ploy of ego. I'll just give up. What if I'll just give up and maybe I'll get enlightenment. Strategizing, bargaining. Go ahead.
The way this is coming up for me is the image of Buddha, wondering if Buddha could have awakened under the tree if he was drunk.
There's no other way he could awaken. He had to be drunk.
His mind was clouded by alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah. You didn't know that?
That's a secret teaching.
Every
You
teaching
don't
is
know.
every teaching is self-secret. That means that it's out and it's in plain sight, but it's secret because you can't understand it. If you can understand it, then it wouldn't be a secret.
Thank you.
Aha. Yes.
Kozan has a question.
Oh, Kozan. This is going to be a hard one.
It's very short.
Okay.
You say it is always about awareness.
Yes.
What is it?
The desire to awaken, the desire to see the truth, the desire to see it. See what is this? Or see what this is, it. It's always about awareness. It's never about what arises in the awareness. Those are the its that we usually look for, some sign that awareness or that enlightenment is happening, or that we're becoming less this or more that. It's not to say that that doesn't happen. If you sit and look at the wall day after day for a few years, you are going to be more peaceful. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's just no way that that wouldn't happen, but it's a conditional situation that happens. What it does is it just relieves you of all of the conflict that you've been dealing with. But it's not awakening. Awakening is goes beyond that.
Her follow-up question, what is awareness?
It's the space in which things occur. If nothing occurs, no awareness. Is that a peace sign?
Sure.
Okay.
So does that mean there has to be some action?
Yeah, that's the situation we're in. Things move this way and then they move that way, and the sun comes up and it goes down. Things are turning and turning and turning. And we get magnetized by it. We try to get the good stuff and keep away the bad stuff. We get sucked into it. We get seduced into fighting with our world, trying to get what belongs to us and keep away the people from taking it from us or whatever, some kind of warfare.
This warfare, if I say that I'm trying to fix this person and I'm doing it without their permission, am I at war?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't meddle with anybody's life, mind, or anything without their permission. And then if they do give you permission, make sure you've got their permission before you go stepping into their brain pan, or you go stepping in there and fixing them based on your idea of what they need. I'm not saying you can't help people, but wait, get to know them and try to see what are they really willing to do. What are they ready to do? What are they ready to really work with? People come to me, I want my help. I say, well, I'm pretty biased here. You know what I teach? Sit down and shut up. Look at the wall. Very, very boring. And quite often people are not really, they want some kind of a quick fix or some kind of can't you give me some kind of a special mantra to say or something? Not that there aren't mantras, but that might not be something that would be good for a particular person to do. They might be better off from the point of view of their neurosis or their schizophrenia, their psychosis, or their confusion. however you want to say it, to just hold still and see the confusion. You have to see the confusion. Then they will come back to you, and through their interaction with you, using your, more experience, however you want to say it, and working with the mind, with your own mind and other people's minds, then they'll come back and show you how they're doing. And then you might say, well, let's do that. Maybe you should go into retreat, or maybe you should become a practice resident, or maybe you should do some kind of mantra practice, or maybe you should maybe instead of doing shikantaza, which is just sitting down, holding still and watching what moves, maybe you should be doing, when I say you, this particular person, maybe this person should be counting your breaths 1 to 10, going back to 1 to 10, 1 to 10, and doing that for several cycles. So you would meet them where they're at based on your understanding and on them giving you permission. Permission is quite often misunderstood. There's no sales pitch involved. We present how we see it, and then do as good a job as we can. I always feel like I can't quite say it clearly enough. Yes.
So this warfare that we go to doesn't necessarily have to be loud or seem like a big battle. It could be subtle things, right?
Oh yes, it's very subtle. It's like some kind of a disagreement with yourself about something you're doing or saying. Or warfare is like saying, "Oh, I shouldn't be thinking like that. I shouldn't be so negative, or I should be more this or more that." Just a constant. And I'm not saying there isn't something to that. Quite often, our insight is pretty accurate. We are stirring things up. But the thing that we are missing is we're not stretching the awareness around that to see more clearly how that's actually operating. We want to jump right into some kind of a Band-Aid. We're so desperate to get out of the difficulty that we're not willing to sit in the difficulty and see how does this work. You wouldn't do that if you were use a relative example. If you were a surgeon, somebody comes in and say, "Well, I'm a brain surgeon, so I'm going to work on your brain no matter what's wrong with you." I mean, it's a silly example, but it's that kind of a thing. Let's first see what maybe this person doesn't even need to meditate. Maybe there's some other direction they should go. Maybe they just need a really good therapist, someone that can really talk to them. Maybe they need somebody that will listen to them and listen to how things are happening, how things are going. And to get some of that out, someone who's very good at doing that. Yes.
What if you've continued to listen?
And they're not minding?
Well, that was the original warfare.
Okay, go ahead.
But they continue
to be a pain in the ass? I don't know, I'm just jumping in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't seem, I guess I have this idea that they should be making progress.
See, that's your problem.
That's my problem.
Yeah, progress is way overrated. Progress is way overrated. It's more about feeling better about stuff than actually being really right with whatever's happening. Progress is circular. I'm not saying that things don't improve or get better on some level, but it's way too much is made of that. So the practice for you, if I may say, since you're opening up here to what's happening here, should be to just be with them. You're not obligated to do anything else. Stay there, look at them in their eyes, look at their eye color, look at their body language. Don't interpret it, and try to figure out how you could, scare them into being a better person. But just be with them. Right.
So any of these ideas they're evidently just mine, and they're my delusions then that I am putting on to them.
I don't think so. I'm not going to let you figure it out. There's no way. You're not getting off any kind of hook because you're not really on a hook. All you have to do is be with them. It's that simple. But to say that, oh, these are just mine, then what that will lead to is you trying not to do that.
So any going or coming or trying is just a delusion.
Did I say that?
I'm asking the question, did you say that?
I didn't say that. Okay, I didn't say that.
Well, my question is any coming, going just a form of delusion? In other words, trying to be enlightened, trying to.
Yes. Coming back to the situation is just be with the person. And then if you have a lot of space and you don't have a big agenda, keep showing up to check to see how they're doing, you're just with them. Then if something does come up that actually where they are maybe showing where there's something that's needed there, then you could say, well, do I have permission to tell you about something, about this or that? I'm seeing something about what's happening with you. But it should come out of awareness, not out of some kind of strategy to make sure you're not meddling and don't. It's always awareness. It's not about not meddling. I know it sounds like it because I say don't meddle.
So
you
then
can't help but do. Yes.
You're smacking down
Yes. Yes.
So are you also saying don't meddle with that? Because you asked us what image came up.
Yeah, just bring awareness to it and see what happens. So you hit something and then you hear a sound. You have all these people here. What do we have? 16, 17 people here, 15 people, 11 watching. So if we had, if something, something unusual happened, if a polar bear came in the room, that's pretty unusual, isn't it? Yeah. So just checking. Get your attention. That's pretty unusual. So how you handle that would tell you where your mind is at with that. And not that we shouldn't get out the other door or find a way to get out of here, because polar bears are not usually very happy to be in a warm climate. This is warm, right?
For them.
It's all relative.
Yeah, thanks. The point I'm trying to make is something untoward happens, something surprising happens, and actually your mind could actually let that be open for a few minutes rather than immediately jumping on something and react out of reaction to it. You could first find out and see if it isn't just somebody in a polar bear suit. Could be. Instead of jumping out that window before you remove the glass. So,
You've heard about the Chinese and the pandas and the panda bear suits.
I have.
I was wondering if you had.
Oh no, I haven't.
They put on these panda bear suits.
Yeah.
So that when the pandas go back into wild, they won't have been polluted by the humans. But
You mean people put on panda bear suits? I'd be a little worried about that.
yes, the whole logic fell apart because
Yeah.
the pandas smell the people, and so anyway.
That's been very helpful.
We'll try that again.
Any final questions? We're over our time. Yes, Shogo.
One of the things that you mentioned about just being with someone is making eye contact.
Yes.
What if someone has difficulty making eye contact?
Well, then you're not going to be able to do that.
How do you
Give them back rub. No, just it doesn't matter. What I'm saying, if they're looking, you look at them. But if they seem to be looking away, and sometimes some people can look at you if you're talking, but if they're talking, they have to look away, or vice versa sometimes. And I would say just don't make any issue of it. Don't force it on them. When they look at you, then look away. Do the same thing they do. You could. I'm not talking about it as a strategy, trying to get some kind of result, but just be with them without particularly being objecting to anything. And in this way, a person will feel comfortable. So then if you're working with them as a teacher, that might function differently there. But if you're just as their friend or their partner or their brother, sister, mate, boyfriend, girlfriend, and just be with them, listen to them. Listen to them. And when you listen to when their voice goes up and down and the spaces between their words as much as you concentrate on what they're saying. And that way you're actually there. You're there. You're not shutting down on all your other senses. And the only one you're concentrating on is your thinking process. So you can see if they are being sincere or not, or you can analyze it. You don't have to analyze anything. Is that a I got it smile or not? Kind of. You know what I'm saying? We've talked about this before. Okay, I think unless there's a final question from off in the dissonance. Is it Kozan? Is it that bad of a question? Okay, go ahead, Kozan.
If a skunk wearing a straw hat, riding a John Deere, tells you a secret in the middle of the night, how can you contemplate what is said without believing it?
Go to the sense of smell. That'll tell you a lot. That's a good place to close. We can dedicate the merit.
In the back of your red chant books is the dedication, and please donate, give us money, help us with our programs.
Unless you're broke, in which case.
And do it anyway. We take mail order, we take anything. Well, checks, donations, PayPal, Visa, no, not yet.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho-san, Chi-son, Mu-sa-mo-ko-sa. SokukoJi, the 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita,